Hi, I'm Iva Jovanovic, and this is SEO in 2025.
Iva, what's your number one SEO tip for 2025?
My tip is focus on delivering meaningful content. Still delivering meaningful content, and do not dismiss the EET signals.
What is meaningful content?
Well, to me, meaningful content is content that you write for users. It's something that will provide value to your audience, something that people will search for, something people need actually, and something people will want to read. It's either like solving some of their problems, answering some of their questions, or even just addressing, some basic things that they would need. They would need from you, your brand, your business, maybe, or just like general. That would include what is the point of your business. It's all over the place. It's all over the internet. Google has even had a stance on that. Everybody is with the age of AI. It's important for brands to have their own content, their own valuable content that will attract people and keep them there. Keep their loyalty and keep the trustworthiness, which is why the EET is very important. The T is trustworthiness. So like you need to build that trust through your content.
Okay, so you shared a lot there. I'm going to dive into a couple of things there as well. But you started off talking about users and just people, the content relevant for the people, and not really search engines. So does that mean that you only think of users nowadays? You don't actually have to think of search engines because search engines are smart enough to understand what meaningful content is?
Honestly, like when I first started SEO years ago, it was all about the keywords that search engines would flag, that they would find, that they would rank from your content. But nowadays, and it's been something that I've like cherished and had in mind whenever I talk to clients, you need to talk to the users. Search engines will pick up on what the users need. The search engines, all of them, not just Google, are evolving. They're always implementing new updates, new features. We have now AI in almost most of the search engines. So you really need to focus on the users because those are the people who will buy stuff from you, who will get your services, who will contact you for something. Those are the people. People are the ones you need on your website. And, it's not even just like on your website. You need to maintain your content throughout all of your channels of communication, be consistent, have your brand image and respect your audience, and also have something for them. So yeah, search engines will pick up on the content. I do still think technical SEO is important, don't get me wrong, but I really think there is more value in content than in getting some of the things off the developer task list done. Because, I've had a client who had a very terrible website in terms of technical things. It had bad loading speed. It had very bad site structure, a lot of indexing issues, and the content is what pushed through the website. The client did not want to invest in fixing the technical things. He wanted to do an entire whole website in the following year. So, all we could do is push out content. And the content won. And it's still winning. The same content that 3 years ago when I started working with the client pushed through the bad website is still now there. You can still find those same content pieces on the same positions and even more going at it.
How bad can a website be to still win in the content game? And I'm thinking that maybe it also depends on how bad your competitors' websites are. So if you're operating in an industry where it's not exactly progressive in terms of the technical structure of a website, then perhaps that's okay. But surely if you've got a 8-second page load time and all your competitors are loading in 1.5 seconds, surely your content can't win in that kind of landscape.
That is true. I'm the first to yell to a client when I audit the website, fix the technical things. But then again, it's a balance. Of course, like if you're gunning for Apple or some big brands or even a high competition market, yeah, you're gonna have to fix the technical ones to stay competitive. But like like you said, it all depends on the market, on the niche, on how you're operating and how the landscape is. But I do believe like a middle ground with, fixing the important technical things. Like, of course, if you have no index on your entire website, you can publish whatever you want. It's not gonna go through. So like prioritize the biggest blockers on the technical list and then go into the content. Of course, if there's room to get all the technical things fixed, do that. But like, I do believe that content kind of can beat that in certain markets.
And you also mentioned trust and touched on EAT as well. How important is EAT in content in 2025?
I mean, honestly, I believed it was important even before they added the extra E, but it is important because there was the Google leak that revealed a lot of new information that may or may not go with the EET. But I do think like you still need to focus your brand on providing those values, providing those guidelines, because you need to build the trust with your content. You need to have as well some authority in what you're speaking. So you have you need to implement some things that will build the trust and the authority among your audience, author byline, about pages, some things like that, smaller things, and do all of that through your content as well. And, you need to have, it's just very important to have at least in some parts checked off all of those things, but most importantly in the extra E that they added. It's very important because it involves a lot of different things involving the content and technical things, because the users need to have a good experience, whether it's, like you mentioned, the loading speed or just the content that is good or even the site structure, things like that.
So what does quality content actually mean? Because is it just to do with users and what users perceive as providing value or relevance for their particular need at that moment in time? Or can it be easier to define by looking at things like word count or readability of content or what that content incorporates?
Honestly, like SEO has grown a lot more in content as well than marking all the green spots in plugins, readability factors. Quality, I believe, to me, it's a bit subjective, but it can be, materialized as objective things, because it's important to have for your content to have something that the users need. So like in terms of what quality is there, it's something that the user is searching for. So yeah, you will do your audience research, you will do your market research, you'll do the keyword research as well to find what is bothering people that you're targeting at. You have to determine, of course, who you're targeting is, and you have to then determine what they are searching for. And it's not just Google, or Bing or whatever. You can use social media. TikTok has a growing search engine as well of sorts. So you can use a lot of different tools, a lot of different channels to figure out what your audience might need and then focus on delivering on that. So quality there would be addressing what the audience needs, what they will search for, what they will need. Because like we've all searched for things, non-SEOs and SEOs alike. You will search for something and the first person who answers that will keep you there. Maybe keep you even browsing through the website, looking for different areas, or just keep you there and you'll remember it, Like, let's say, for example, in SEO, we all know now SEMrush's articles that deliver a lot of different things and you can learn so much from them. There's a lot of like other resources from like Search Engine Land or Search Engine Journal. They provide a lot of different things, but they all answer something. So their audience is a bit like, diverse. It includes beginners, medians, or seniors SEOs, but they have guidelines for when you're starting out, when you're diving deep into schema, for example, stuff like that. So something like people would search for. If it's a small business, they, maybe some product that the users did not know they needed. It's a competitive market and there's a lot of brands building out new things. And it's good if you're like building something new in a new specific area. But if you're breaking in a market that is already, very existing, very competitive, you need to be the one who is atop of your competitors, and you need to be the one who will attract the users towards you. And you'll do that with, answering what they need, answering their need, questions, and stuff like that.
So one of the first things that you mentioned there was keyword research. What's your process there? What tools do you use? What kinds of keyword phrases do you tend to select over others? And then what's your process to go from keywords to producing content?
I use like keyword research for basically topic creation. It's kind of like inspiration-based thing. It's not set in stone for me, but I do use it. I use different tools. I think I have a subscription to all the main SEO tools. It's Ahrefs, SEMrush, Majestic, Moz. I think I have like access to all of them, and I tend to do cross-reference. I tend to do cross keyword research because they have different inputs, they have different data, they have different focuses, and I also like to use tools like, there was before people also ask there, the keyword everywhere. There is also asked, there's a lot of different tools that can like go deep into providing to give some insight. And I tend to go for the long tail keywords, especially, well, depending on the market, especially the ones that are like question based, because that is some of the things users will mostly search for. And, a lot of these different tools do provide those questions. And if it's not like, if I don't select the main keyword as this question, I will then integrate some of the questions into the content as well. So I tend to like go to assess what is something that the user will search for. And I usually like put myself in those shoes, because what would I type into Google if I was searching for this? I get the topic idea, I get something in mind, and then I would think based on all the keywords I got from that one keyword or that idea, what would be something that I would search for and what should I focus on there?
I haven't heard you say the word volume. Do you ever look at keyword volume?
Yeah, I mean, not gonna lie, I do look at it, but I like when I'm arranging the keyword, it does tend to be one of the like aspects that I go for, but it does depend on which clients I'm working for. So some of the clients I will try to go for the high volume keyword, but in some markets I would go for the zero volume as well. I would focus on that one, because that I would believe I would see a keyword and I believe that would be a good topic to have on the website, regardless if it like maybe somebody has searched for, maybe nobody has searched for, maybe somebody will. And then would use that zero volume keyword to have an article of that. I do tend, like if it's a new client that has not had anything before, I do tend to balance out with the high volumes and the zero volumes ones. But it's not like a deciding factor for me, but I do use it to, arrange things.
So how should brands go from selecting the keyword to deciding what content needs to be produced?
Well, yeah, I would pull out everything I find into a Google Sheet and then go through it and arrange it to see if like something that I thought could be a separate topic might not be a good one. That's where I would perhaps use the volume factor in. Or if something that I thought would be a good full-on guide, maybe split it up into two categories, and I'd go through all that. And then I arrange everything, and then I look at it, and I do like go bit Googling of the keywords to see like what the competition is doing, what the competition is like, see what they're targeting, see what their URLs are, headings are, and stuff like that. And then I would create a whole full-on like keyword set for all the blogs. And how I decide which will go, if it's a new client, blank clients, I tend to go for the basic ones, the main ones, the big ones that you need to process, what is, how to do, and stuff like that. And then in the second batch, go for maybe something specific more. If it's an already established client, I do already assess the content that they have and try to implement rewriting that content or updating that content into that as well. But I just I don't know, it's all case to case scenario. There's no ultimate rule on how we'll decide what will go and how will it go and which one it's first. I need to look at the whole picture. I need to look at the whole industry niche. I need to look at the client as well, and then proceed to arrange the keywords and the topics based on that.
Do you try to incorporate EAT into the content, or is that something that just happens naturally as you write?
Yes and no. Sometimes it happens naturally as I write. Sometimes it needs a bit more because, sometimes I need the client input. I need to go on a call with the client, or maybe if they don't have time for a call, hand them the content so they can add something that is more relatable to the brand, because they know the brand best. They are the ones who represent the brand. They know everything there is. I am learning what they are. I am going into what they are, and I need their input. So like in the first couple of months working with a client, it would be a lot of, okay, so what do you offer on this? Or maybe give me some content changes or comments or something. I try to implement that naturally if I can, but I also go through them. Of course, like whenever I get a new client, I do have like the initial onboarding call with everything that I need to know, but I also like to, have monthly meetings, or if it's possible, biweekly meetings to get some information, because I would do some research, I would find some information, be like, okay, I don't know that, I need their input on this to make it better, to make the content more meaningful, to make it, fit better, to show their expertise, to show their trustworthiness, authority, and stuff like that. So I tend to do it naturally. And I also like to advise my clients to add some other EET signals. I always advocate to have like an author byline, to have an about page and stuff like that. And also, add visuals like infographics or FAQ sections, accordion sections, or even like tables and stuff, data, statistics, and that kind as well. So the natural process of my writing does implement a lot of those, but I do want to advise the clients to add some other things on the technical side as well.
I haven't heard you say the two letters, AI. Does that involve itself in the content production process?
Honestly, it's the big whole question in the SEO. And yes, I use it, but I don't, it's not a level that I would advise people to rely on. Yeah, I say, yeah, use it. I use it a lot of the times. It's good for brainstorming ideas, and it has a lot of useful, areas you can use it at. But it's the most important thing, and this is something I've sent to my clients a million times. Do not leave it raw. Do not leave it unedited. It doesn't know. It doesn't know your brand. And even if it got familiar, it's still not factually correct or have good sentences. It can repeat itself. There's a lot of things that it can do that will not provide the good content, the quality content. So I always advise clients, yes, you can use the AI. I use it as well in some other in some aspects, but I avoid its fluff. I avoid its data unless it can give me a source of something. I use it as a helpful tool, not as the main one. And I've had clients come with only using raw, unedited ChatGPT content, for example. And you can tell from a miles away. You can see it. You see the content in the UK from the US that it's written with ChatGPT. It has its patterns and it has its flaws. And you can use it, but don't use it as the main thing.
Avoid the AI fluff, people.
Yeah, definitely. I call it fluff because people. All of us call it fluff because it's empty content. It's sentences, even paragraphs, something that doesn't provide anything. It always finishes, by leveraging these tips, you can do this and that. It always uses some kind of generic things that don't add anything to what's already written. It can have good content, don't get me wrong. I've seen it produce very good structural after a lot of prompts, but it tends to repeat itself and it tends to, have those empty paragraphs.
If an SEO is struggling for time, what should they stop doing right now so they can spend more time doing what you suggest in 2025?
Well, this is something that I would wish somebody told me, but I would say do not stop overthinking it. Don't overthink and don't overfocus. It's very important because as SEOs, we are bombarded with everything. There is a Google Core update, there is a Google Spam update, there's a Google leak, there's everything. There's a lot of information out there and it can be intimidating a bit. I know it was a bit to me because I didn't, when you were entering the SEO, or if you're still in the SEO, it can be a bit overwhelming because you have your work, you have your things, you have your life, and then you have to do these things as well. So my main would be, stop or overthinking it. You should filter out everything that, you don't need. Focus on what you need for your client or company if you're in-house, or your own website if you're starting out. Don't focus on everything and don't stay in one place as well. I would say, try, test, play, get creative, explore things on your own, interact with other SEOs. That has helped me a lot, honestly. And even at other departments, I've learned so much from my developers that I worked with, or the social media or the ads people. I've learned a lot, and it has helped me, filter out a lot of things and focus myself on something that I need. And you don't need to know everything. You need to know how to get the best of everything that is out there. It's the internet. It's full of everything. And the best would be, focus on what you need. Filter it out. Don't overthink it. Don't overplay it. Just, experiment. Get creative. It is you should get creative with things in SEO.
Iva Jovanovic is SEO and content specialist at Made Online, and you can find her over at madeonline.com. Iva, thanks so much for being part of SEO in 2025.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
I've been your host, David Bain. Get your copy of SEO in 2025, the book, over at SEOin2025.com.